Did you ever wonder if the demons could defeat the real-world army? How would they fare against the modern weaponry like fighter jets, tanks, or bombs? And maybe the most important question, what would happen to them when the sun rises? Well, in order to answer that, I split the army's power into 5 different levels, and with each new level, they'll get a huge increase in power. So let's first see how many levels each upper moon can pass on their own, and at the end of the video, we'll see what would happen if all demons fought the army together. For example, in the first level, Gyutaro and Daki would face off against a group of armed soldiers with modern weapons and armor. Considering Daki and Gyutaro are demons, no amount of damage from regular weapons would have any effect against them, and they could easily heal any wounds in seconds. As for the soldiers, I guess they'll either get immediately eliminated or become a large supply of food, since Daki can use her 𝐂𝐵𝐴 to store them. It's like a lunchbox, but you know, for people. Realizing the opponents are much stronger than they thought, the army adds a second wanted level to their name. This includes sending tanks, choppers, and fighter jets to the battlefield too. Would this be enough to bring the demons down? Well, it's definitely gonna be tricky. First, the siblings could easily get rid of the regular soldiers like they did in the first stage. As for the tanks, Gyutaro would have to use his blood demon art for the first time. I feel bad for the guys in the tanks already. With his flying blood sickles technique, Gyutaro can do a lot of damage to his surroundings, and I really don't think tanks could survive this. Okay, that was pretty easy, but what about flying enemies like choppers and jets? Well, this is where Daki's 𝐂𝐵𝐴 sash would come in handy. She can control it to go wherever she wants, and using it to pull down a few choppers shouldn't be that hard. The fighter jets might be a bit tricky because of how fast they move, but that doesn't mean they can't be taken down. You see, Gyutaro has the ability to shoot powerful blood projectiles from his sickles, and these projectiles can follow the enemy around. This means that once Gyutaro sends them after the jets, they don't stand a chance and will be destroyed sooner or later. Okay, the first 2 levels were pretty much a practice for these 2 experienced demons, but the 3rd level is where their luck completely changes. The only difference at this level is that dawn is starting to break, so Daki and Gyutaro need to think quickly and find a way to survive the sunrise. Since they don't have any abilities to survive the sun, the first thing they would do is flee and try to find shelter. While they're trying to do this, they will be constantly attacked from the sky by jets and shot at by soldiers, making their escape much harder. In the end, even if they find a shelter and hide, the army can always blow it up with bombs, leaving the demons completely helpless and slowly disintegrating. So, it's clear that Daki and Gyutaro stood no chance against the 3rd wanted level, but is there anyone among the remaining 6 demons that can actually complete it? What about our basketball-headed boy, 𝐭𝐲𝐶? Well, during the first level, 𝐭𝐲𝐶 wouldn't even have to rely on his demon abilities, because as a human, he already mastered the 𝐸𝐴 style, which allowed him to annihilate 67 trained swordsmen with just his fists. By the way, I heard he does this to every person who isn't subscribed to the channel, so maybe you should consider subscribing. Thanks. Anyway, moving to the 2nd wanted level, 𝐭𝐲𝐶 would have to get more creative if he wants to take out these new enemies. Firstly, the tanks wouldn't be a big problem, since he can just go wild with his punches and smash them to pieces. Now, considering 𝐭𝐲𝐶 is a hand-to-hand fighter, reaching flying enemies might be harder than you think. One way he could do it is by using his blood demon art, Destructive Death. This technique lets him combine destructive shockwaves with his 𝐸𝐴 martial arts style. 𝐭𝐲𝐶 can control these shockwaves from a distance, and they were powerful enough to completely break Rengoku's body. This means real-world weapons made from aluminum or steel wouldn't stand a chance and would be easily shattered. This incredible performance will quickly earn 𝐭𝐻𝐲 the 3rd wanted level. So does this incredibly strong demon stand any chance against the rising sun? Well, as we saw at the end of the Mujin train arc, 𝐭𝐻𝐲 didn't think twice before running uncontrollably towards the forest when he noticed the sun coming up. He would probably do the same thing here, taking off toward the nearest forest or building, trying desperately to get to safety. However, as we mentioned in Daki's and Gyutaro's segment, this isn't a viable strategy against the army, since they can easily blow up any shelter 𝐭𝐻𝐲 finds. This means that sooner or later, the Upper Moon 3 demon will disintegrate, and the army will be victorious again. Pretty sad ending for 𝐭𝐻𝐲, but there are still 5 demons left to cover, and at the end of the video, we'll explain what would happen if all demons, including Muzan, fought the army together. Next up on the list is Huntengu, a demon who always has a trick up his sleeve, and it's almost like he has infinite amount of lives. Will this guy be the first demon to survive the rising sun? I think we can safely skip the first level here, as there's really no point in covering it. When it comes to the 2nd level, Huntengu is perfectly equipped to handle anything the army throws at him. I mean, mean, this guy literally has 6 clones of himself, each with a different set of abilities. He could easily destroy tanks using Sekido's Thunder Strikes, and Urogi could easily deal with flying enemies by literally flying up to them. However, after passing the first 2 levels, Hantengu now has to face the demon's biggest enemy, the sun. Could he somehow survive this? You see, during the Swordsmith Village arc, we learned that Hantengu's real body is not any of these guys, and is actually a completely separate demon who doesn't even have to be on the battlefield at all. Considering his cowardly nature, do you really think he'd risk exposing himself to this new, unpredictable enemy? Of course he wouldn't. He would just let his clones do all the fighting for him. Do you see where I'm going with this? As soon as the sun comes up, all of Hantengu's clones would quickly disintegrate, but that wouldn't matter at all because his main body would be safely hidden somewhere outside of the battlefield. The army, thinking they had won, would retreat and spend the rest of the day celebrating their victory. However, as soon as the sun comes down, they would be shocked to see that Hantengu is still alive and ready for battle. This would make Hantengu the first demon to reach the 4th wanted level. So what crazy new advantage will the army get this time? Well, this level is a bit different from the rest. Here, the army will learn everything about the demon they are fighting and their powers. This means they can use this new information to figure out the demon's weakness and create a plan to stop them. When it comes to Hantengu, the army will learn exactly how his abilities to create clones work. They will also learn that if they want to beat him, they have to make sure his real body disintegrates too. An important thing to remember about Hantengu is that even though he doesn't have to be on the battlefield himself, he still has to be close enough for his clones to work properly. So now that the army knows this, as soon as the sun rises and the clones disintegrate, they'll start looking for Hantengu's real body. They would also know that Hantengu can change his size, so searching for him manually would be pointless since finding him would be very hard. So what's the next best thing the army could do to make sure they find him? That's right, just nuke everything in the area. After nuking all possible shelters, including forests and houses, Hantengu would have nowhere left to hide, and as soon as his body touches the sun, he'll disintegrate. Okay, I think we can all agree that Hantengu survived way longer than we expected, but even with all his powers, he couldn't reach the final 5th level. But there are still 4 very strong demons left to cover, so let's continue with Upper Moon 2, Doma. Considering that Doma is one of the strongest demons, the first 2 levels would be child's play for him, and he'd complete them easily with a big smile on his face. He would probably take his time too, playing with soldiers and making them slowly suffer. However, as soon as the sun starts rising and the 3rd level begins, he'd have to get serious. Now, to be honest, after all the research I've done for this video, I couldn't really come up with a sure way Doma could survive the sunrise. But there is one thing he could try. You see, Doma's blood demon art, cryokinesis, lets him control his flesh and blood to create frost and ice and spread them around a large area. Now, you're probably wondering, how exactly is this supposed to help Doma survive the sun? Well, in theory, Doma could use his blood demon art to completely cover himself in ice to keep the sun from touching him. In addition to this, he could also create clouds of icy air above, acting like an umbrella. And although this trick seems like it could work, there's one huge problem. You see, we all know that the sun disintegrates demons. There's actually another thing it does. It completely dispels any blood demon art it touches. This means that no matter what Doma does to protect himself, all of his defenses will be destroyed as soon as they touch the sun, leaving Doma completely helpless and, well, dead. Before we cover how Kokushibo and Muzan would fare against the army, let's first see if Gyoko, the Upper Moon 5, can do anything against it. And trust me, Gyoko will definitely surprise you with his performance. So, like with all the demons before him, I'll give Gyoko a pass for the first 2 levels, as he would easily clear them even in sleep. So let's go straight to the interesting parts. Even though some people think Gyoko is the weakest Upper Moon demon, he actually has the perfect ability to deal with the sun. You see, Gyoko can use his vases to teleport him from one place to another, which we saw him do many times during the Swordsmith Village arc. He is also very fast and able to create these vases instantly, which makes him a very hard target. Seeing that the sun is starting to rise, Gyoko would begin his grand escape. He would leave the gigantic fish-like monsters to fight off the army while he escapes through his vase. By the time the sun is completely out, his fish monsters would have been burned to ashes and Gyoko would be in a safe place popping some champagne. Although Gyoko managed to easily outsmart the army and escape, it's not over yet, as he now has to survive the 4th level, the level that no demon so far has been able to survive. Can he actually pull it off? As we already talked about, at this level, the army will get information on the demon they're fighting. After going through Gyoko's file, they will realize that the only way to stop him from escaping is to stop targeting him and target his vases instead. A very simple and easy plan that is sure to give them the win, right? Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. You see, in the manga and anime, we saw that Gyoko can create many vases at once very quickly. This means that as soon as the army destroys them, he'll just make new ones. No matter how long the army keeps this going, Gyoko will never run out of vases. And as soon as the sun starts rising, he'll escape, leaving the army completely helpless. This would make Gyoko the first demon to reach the 5th and final wanted level. Wow, I bet none of you expected this. At the 5th level, the army gets the biggest power-up so far, the ability to make weapons from the scarlet ore, which is the material from which Demon Slayer's swords are made. Just imagine tanks using 𝐿 shells, jets dropping 𝐿 bombs, or even heavy artillery using 𝐿 bullets. Yeah, Gyoko is in huge trouble here. While his Blood Demon art is impressive and lets him dodge most attacks, the sheer number of weapons present would be too much to handle, even for him. Eventually, he would fall to the barrage of attacks and his body, including his head, would be ripped to pieces. Only 2 more demons are left to cover before the big finale, and the next one is Muzan's strongest follower, Kokushibo. How would this guy fare against the real-world army? As the highest-ranking member of the 12 Kizuki, Kokushibo has many unique techniques and abilities that other demons don't have. Using his own breathing style, moon breathing, Kokushibo would easily destroy tanks and jets with his crescent moons. But we all knew that the first 2 levels weren't going to be a problem for him, so let's see what he could possibly do against the rising sun. Despite having the most unique techniques out of any other demon, one thing you'll notice when you go through them is that these are all offensive techniques. There isn't one ability that helps him with moving around or defending. This sadly means that his only option against the rising sun would be to run to safety, similar to what some demons before him tried. Now, although Kokushibo's abilities are on a completely different level compared to the other upper moons, when it comes to seeking shelter from the sun, I just don't see how his abilities would make any difference. In the end, the army would find him wherever he's hiding, destroy his shelter, and let him slowly disintegrate to pieces. Before we cover what would happen if all demons together fought against the army, let's first see if Muzan, the demon lord, could do anything against it. Starting with the 3rd level, let's see if there's an ability that would let Muzan survive the sun. Muzan's blood demon art is called biokinesis. This mainly lets him control his body at will and change shape, which is the exact ability he needs to survive this. You see, whenever Muzan is in a tight spot, he just splits his body into a million pieces and escapes. He's done this against Yoriichi and tried to do it against Tanjiro as well. This means that the army would have to keep track of over 1,000 Muzan pieces that would scatter in all directions. And let's be honest, if Yoriichi couldn't destroy them all, the army has no chance. Once his pieces are safely in the shade somewhere far away, he'll transform to his full body once again, successfully surviving the sun. In the 4th level, the army would learn everything about Muzan's abilities and weaknesses. However, there's a problem. No matter how long they research Muzan and his abilities, there really isn't anything to find. This guy has been alive for over 1,000 years, and besides sunlight, there's nothing that can hurt him. Even if they learn everything about his ability to split himself, what exactly are they gonna do about it? Ask him not to? Yeah, Muzan clears this level easily. However, the toughest challenge so far now awaits him. The 5th level, where the army can use 𝐿 weapons to attack him. Even though we're talking about Muzan, the Demon King, we can all agree that he can't stay unharmed at this level. He would definitely make use of his remarkable speed and try to dodge most of the attacks, but at some point, he's bound to get hit. However, even when that happens, his incredible healing ability will make sure he can always continue fighting without slowing down. If by some miracle, the army actually manages to outsmart him and blow up his entire head with one of their 𝐿 weapons, it still wouldn't be enough, as Muzan has the ability to regenerate his head. So tell me, how do you kill a guy who can't die, even after getting sliced and diced with the very weapon that's supposed to kill him? Well, the answer is simple. You don't. Muzan's only weakness in combat is sun breathing, and until someone from the army learns how to use it, they stand no chance. This means Muzan will successfully pass the 5th level. And although Muzan surviving all 5 levels is impressive, taking over the world by himself would be pretty much impossible. This is because splitting like this requires large amounts of stamina, and it may take Muzan decades to fully recover. So let's give him a little help and answer our final question. Could all demons together take over the world? Starting off with the 3rd level again, you may think that most demons will die during this stage due to sunlight. But what if I tell you that that's completely wrong? You see, even though most demons have no way to escape the sun, they will all actually survive because of one single demon, Nakime. Nakime's blood demon art allows her to teleport anyone she wants into the Infinity Castle, which is a castle that doesn't exist in the physical world. All demons would be perfectly safe there while the sun is up, and there's absolutely nothing the army could do to stop it. The funny thing is that even at the 4th level, when the army gets knowledge about the abilities of all demons they are fighting, there is still absolutely nothing they can do. There's no way to stop Nakime's ability, and whatever the army does, one strum of her biwa will always teleport everyone to safety without fail. In the 5th and final level, the army will come prepared, armed with their 𝐿 weapons. But is there really anything they can do? Well, considering Nakime isn't that strong by herself, one thing they could try to do is eliminate her as fast as possible so she wouldn't be able to teleport anyone. But there's one big problem with this plan. Nakime doesn't even have to be on the battlefield to teleport others. Yeah, this basically means that she can just relax in the Infinity Castle, and whenever Muzan gives her the command, she can just teleport everyone to safety. The army's only option at this point would be a desperate, all-out attack, using their most advanced weaponry in a bid to exterminate as many demons as possible. Despite eliminating countless weaker demons this way, their efforts would prove futile. The Upper Moons, now working together, would swiftly crush the human forces, forcing them to surrender. And so, with the army's defenses shattered and humanity brought to its knees, Muzan and his Upper Moons will stand victorious, beginning an era where demons reign supreme over the world.